Hello and welcome to another television review from MB. Glad you could join us tonight, this evening, whenever it may be. As you can see, we're still doing one cam
this morning,
which we always do anyway for the reviews, John. But it's always good doing these reviews, and we're certainly enjoying this television series we're watching just now, Scam 1992,
yes.
The Harshad Mehta story.
Yep.
Last week we covered episode 1 and 2, John.
Mm-hmm.
Very slow burning sort of.
Very tilted, doesn't it?
I look a bit taller than you.
It's concerning. You are taller than me, Steve. A lot taller.
Sitting down, I shouldn't be, but that's just a fact.
You're 6 foot.
Slow burn, John. I would say the first 2 episodes where we were establishing this character, Harshad Mehta, his sort of roots, where he came from, his sort of uprise, and then we were left with that little cliffhanger at the end of episode 2, Cobra Killer. We're now getting into episode 3, and we will take a short pause, and then we'll come back for episode 4.
Which is my favourite.
Episode 3 is called Paise Dukaan, and I'll just read the short synopsis. It's on IMDb. This is getting rated 9.1. I would agree with that. This is a very good episode. And it says, once the money market catches Harshad's fancy, he launches his own cartel of brokers and starts dealing with banks. Soon he bags SBI as his client, and fate takes a U-turn. Watch ahead to know how. Well, we did watch ahead.
Yes.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, John. Now, the only problem is, I know you are just fresh off watching these. I watched them at the start of the week, so... Yeah. There's going to be some things that I've probably forgot.
That's
but
what
I'm
the guidelines for, Stephen.
You will remind me. So now I'm going to pass it over to you, John,
yes.
And you can take us through this review experience.
Absolutely. Well, Stephen, at the end of the last episode, if I'm not incorrect in saying, he was in a high.
Yeah.
He had worked the system very well. Manu and his goons were defeated. So this guy became a sort of maverick, king of the Bombay Stock Exchange. And he had to really get... we already know this guy defrauded the Indian stock... India in general, the stock exchange.
Do we have a graphic? Because I know that you said last week you forgot about it. There we go. Sorry.
Yes, it's there. We know that he defrauded it for billions in today's terms. So he has to go very quickly from king of this stock exchange to king of a rather bigger arena. And we see that in this episode. It's really about him jumping into the money market. Am I correct in saying the money market?
The money market, yeah.
And it's a really fascinating episode, Stephen, because we're going on an educational journey here, not just a journey following Harshad Mehta and his rise to being this absolute superstar in India in the 90s and 80s. And we see that in the 4th episode. This guy is like a Bollywood superstar or a cricketer or something like that. And he mentions that you can come from a common man to a hero, from a hero to a god.
There was people making comparisons with him with someone. I don't know who the person is.
Yeah,
I can't even remember the name they were quoting. But obviously it was a big star. I would imagine.
Began with B. I can't recall. Yeah. But they had to move it up a notch in this episode from the stock exchange, and he gets back in the odd occasion, but for the most part this is about him moving into a completely different territory.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating watch, and the introduction is brilliant. It's him and Ashwan. They're going to seal a deal.
Yeah.
Not realising they've took stocks from this company and sold them on and sort of cut them, undercut them if you like. And they get a moral lesson on trust. Trust is the most important aspect of sealing deals with this company. They can't seal a deal because they screwed this company over. And that was great. I loved that intro. Right away, it's putting them on the back foot. We get them on a high, they're on the back foot. And he has to really think outside the box of how he wants to really start earning the crores, is it? Is that what you call it over there? I'm pretty sure it's crores. C-R-O-R-E-S. Crores. Yeah. What did you make about the intro, Stephen? I thought it was an interesting way to start an episode with a meeting, him trying to seal a deal.
Yeah,
he's on a high. He's riding the crescent of a wave, and he kind of gets booted in the hum horse. What did you make about it?
Refreshing to see that actually happening.
He
did get
booted in the ham horse.
The ham horse.
He rises again.
I think so. I think it's a good way of sort of keeping him grounded as well. You know, keep him at his station at the moment. There's plenty of time for him to be on the rise. But yeah, it was a good scene. What I liked about that sort of opening 5-10 minutes was you can actually see him physically thinking things out. I think I mentioned this last week.
Yeah,
there seems to be this characteristic with Harshad that he's always thinking the next thing. Whereas you mentioned, John, we left this character on a high in episode 2, and that kind of that kind of ran into episode 3 with the rest of the gang, if you like. You know, we're working at what's the company called again? Gromor.
Yeah.
Everyone was content. They're all happy in their jobs. It's doing well, reasonably well. He's not content with that. You know, he
not
wants
doing well enough.
He wants to take over the country.
Yeah,
you know,
he does.
And you can see him sitting in his desk, feet up in the sitting in his chair, feet up in the desk. You know, he's already thinking the next thing that he wants to do. You know, and people question it. They say, well, why do you want to do this? You know, we're doing so well. He doesn't think they're doing that well, because he has a grand plan, obviously.
And he knows he's a master in this field. He is miles ahead of all of his competitors. Manu, I think it was, the little fat guy, floats around every now and then.
He's
but
became more likeable, John. I actually see the first episode. I didn't like him. I thought he was a bit stuck up.
Yeah.
But as the episodes have been, you know,
Stephen, he's actually probably the protagonist. You need to remember Harshad Mehta as the antagonist in this story. It's telling the story of a fraudster.
Yeah, it's
These
funny,
people around are want to bring him down before he commits to fraud. So in a sense, a strange warped way, these guys like Manu and the Ajay Kedia, although they're committing fraud as well, just not on a scale of Harshad. They're in a sense probably the protagonists in a strange way, but it's because it's skewed to Harshad's perspective. He's kind of a protagonist. I love the guy. I'm going to get into it later on. Probably in the 4th episode more than this. I absolutely love him. I wish this guy was floating around these days and doing what he's doing, because he's just, man, he's a maverick. He's just trying to make everyone richer. Okay, he's going about it in nefarious means, but everyone's winning. And we see that from the journalist and her friend in the 4th episode. He says, no one cares, because everyone's getting a bite of the cherry. They're all winning out of this. These companies are winning. The share market's winning. The economy's winning. So I'm going off in tangents about Harshad and my love for the guy. I don't even know him. I didn't even know he existed until about a month ago.
Yeah.
But I do love him in this series, and the actor's absolutely fantastic. But Stephen, he goes to a party, he's coming fresh off of being booted in the old bollocks in that meeting. He couldn't seal the deal. And he meets AJ Kedia, who is one of the big, I think it's the bear. I'm trying to find it. I've wrote it down the next episode. Something bear, anyway. Part of a rival cartel, in a sense. A financial cartel there with Citibank. They really control the money markets. He meets this guy briefly at the party. I think he's with Pranev again, who's taking more of a backseat as these episodes move on, and that's a good thing. Just an arrogant shit, this guy. He brushes him aside. He gives him his card. He's not interested. I'll see if you stick around or something. He makes some remark. He's in and around being one of these fake, sort of arrogant arsehole types who just communicate with everybody, but it's superficial.
Yeah.
They're just doing it to make themselves look good.
Yeah.
And he gets that sort of backstep, but it brings this notion of money markets into his mind, and that's really important moving forward.
John, I think AJ Kedia, I don't know how to say the name. He's a welcome to the series, I think. You know,
says he looks like the Coffney.
Yeah, he does. He's got a kind of vibe about him. But I think it's good to have different players in it. You know, I thought after episode 2, when we were introduced to Manu, is it?
Manu.
I thought, is this what we're getting, or are we just getting him for one episode? But it turns out he's actually, you know, in it more than we thought he was going to be. But this guy's a different kettle of fish again. He's more in the mould of Harshad, I think, anyway, from what I've seen anyway. But
him and
he's
the other
more,
guy, Tiago.
But he's more experienced. But you need these guys because their cages are going to be rattled. And we see that in episode 3 and more so in 4, where they do start to worry about this guy. But at this point, he doesn't really feel threatened by Harshad at one bit. He just thinks he's another upstart that thinks he knows more than he does. He's not going to be at his level at any point. In fact, he actually kind of scampers off to this little corner with all these other little sycophants. And Harshad's face at that point actually made me laugh.
Yeah, he was holding the whiskey.
Yeah, he was holding his. Was it his brother?
Yeah, it was Sanif.
Oh no, sorry, it was his partner.
Pranev. I think it's Sanif. Pranev.
And I did say partner there because that plays into you know, the storyline later on. Who he actually sees as his business partner. It's not the other wee guy, but it's just the face on him. It's the face on him.
Face of fizz.
Yeah, and then he drinks. You know, and. I know it's early on, but I feel that anyone that's going to cross Harshad and Mehta, you know, and do that to him, he's going to get them back big time. And we'll see how that happens.
Apart from the journalist, I think, who's going to bring him down?
Yeah, well, John, this is the other thing. I know we'll probably talk about. I can't remember her name, but she narrates.
It's Susheta.
Yeah, Susheta. She narrates for quite a big part as well before we get to see her, because at first I had to actually look up, just because I'm not very good with names. I'm like, who is that speaking? I know it's a woman speaking, but who is it? Mm-hmm. And then when I realised it was a journalist, I went, great, we're going to see more of her, because we didn't really see a lot of her in the first 2 episodes. It was more about Harshad's family and his sort of his surroundings, his upbringing, his closeness with his dad. That's how I don't mind what they did with the dad. He was a great character, and I liked the actor as well for that 2 episodes, start of episode 2. But once they obviously killed him off, I knew they weren't going to hang around too long with the family. And it was all going to be about him after this, and it certainly was. Yeah,
it's all about Harshad. This is the Harshad Mehta story. It's not about
the Mehta family.
The Mehta family. It's just about this guy and his rise and his fall. His fall, if you like. But Stephen, mostly you get this point where he's been butt hot. He's been kicked to the side. He's an outsider. He's a lowly person compared to this AJ Kedia guy.
Yeah.
The mind starts worrying again. He starts to think about how he can work his way into the money market. He gets rejected again and again. There's established players within the money market. Citibank, they control everything. And if you're not within that little cartel, you don't really get a look in.
No.
So he has to work overtime to try and find his into this money market. And he does it via, and I can't even recall the character's name, but he specifically buys a plane ticket just to sit next to him so he can try and convince him. And the way that he convinces him, again, this guy's so charismatic. He can convince probably a chicken or a turkey to walk into the oven for a Christmas dinner. It's a terrible analogy, I know, but he's such a charismatic guy. And he really does. And it's a great conversation too. I says it supplies an exposition sort of moment. An expository, I hate that word, sounds wrong. Conversation about the money market, about the cartels within Citibank, just everything that's going on within this different arena of finance within India. And it's a great way of explaining to laymen like us who don't know anything about money market, about all of these terminologies, what the hell's going on here, just like the first episode with the stock exchange. It's a great expository conversation, and it furthers the plot too. I love the sequence on the plane, John, for a variety of reasons.
It shows, you mentioned charisma there, and it does show that just the influence he has on complete strangers as well, because I wish I knew this guy. I should have took notes. But I think...
he's a cool looking dude.
Yeah, and I mean, it could really just fob him off and say, you know, I'm busy, I don't really want to talk to you or anything.
It basically convinces him by saying, I will do all of the work, all of the burden will be on me, you just have to be the front.
Yeah.
So he says it's his cartel. He's like, not our cartel. He says, no, your cartel.
It kind of went too plain sailing for me. That it was too. He convinced them too easy. But again, you're talking about charisma, John. Then that has something to do with it as well. Yeah, I mean, he convinced them, obviously to listen to his plan to begin with, and from then it just sort of grew from there. But it was a good introduction. And again, John, we're getting to see more characters, and that's what I like about episode 3 and 4. We're getting to see this world open up a bit more.
It's multi-perspective.
Yeah,
that was my one criticism. We didn't see enough of the Susheta journalist character. It was all focused on Harshad, and whilst I love the character, and it done a good job of exploring this guy's rise, his backstory. It bonded you with the character, so you can then go on the journey with him as he rises and then ultimately falls.
John,
these other episodes really do expand it better.
Exactly, John. You're absolutely right, and I think that's why they sort of base those first 2 episodes primarily on him and his perspective. So by episode 10, we will remember those first 2 episodes, where he was and where he ended up.
Steering already there by episode 4. That office he moves in, he's ridiculous.
Yeah,
he's playing pool in a huge mansion.
Yeah.
He comes from this claustrophobic little crowded place.
John, you're talking about the office where him and the partner, I can't remember his name, terrible names. They actually do this panning shot where it shows you both of their offices side by side, and both of them sit down at their desks.
Yeah, that was great.
Simultaneously.
Fantastic.
It's just, I mean, we'll talk about technical stuff, John, at some point, I know that, but it's those little things that make a great television series.
It really is, Stephen. This is a brilliantly constructed television series. Just everything visually, technically, editing, really slick.
Yeah.
Every episode I've watched, I'm 25 minutes, 30 minutes deep into it, and it's flew by like that.
Yeah.
It's just so enjoyable. You're caught up, and it's harder, Stephen, watching a foreign language experience with these subtitles. You have to focus on what's going on with the dialogue. So for it to then draw you up whilst you're watching it, it's borderline like what Bong Joon-ho, I always screw his name up, what he does with all those great Korean movies. That's a sign of really good filmmaking, TV making, whatever you want to call it. I call it filmmaking. It's really well created. And Stephen, obviously, this continues on, man. We have the bankerage. I put bankerage in quotes. This guy comes up with his own word, bankerage, where he, in a sense, uses a bank's image of integrity, hits it used as a front while he does all of his dodgy dealings and gives them, I think, a 20% cut.
Yeah,
on all of the things that happen.
He takes their money. It's a play on the word bank and leverage, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Leverage and banking. He takes their money, he gambles it in the stock exchange, pretty much always wins a profit, and then he puts it back in before the bank receipts have to be presented. So he's just an absolute shyster of a guy, but he's always forward thinking. Yeah. And he's only doing with the Citibank, but this bear gang, I think it is, the Citibank cartel are doing, but he's doing it in a, they say a less, I think they say civilised. He's doing it in a less, they're a little bit more careful in the way that they play the bank's money. Whereas he's coming into this money market, he's looking to make a name for himself, and he's just using money left, right and centre. So, how would you put it? I can't recall what the term would be. Maybe bloating the stock exchange, bloating all of these various, I can't recall that. Yeah, there's various different companies he bought, he sort of banked in with his stocks. I can't recall them all at the moment, but I just loved that moment in this episode. The Citibank guys, the likes of Ajay Kedia and the TJ, I always forget his name, I'm going to look it up again. I think it's TJ Tiagi, not TJ, terrible Tiagi, his brother, the Citibank cartel. Loved that moment where they didn't really care about him. He was a bit of shit in their shoe. Then they start taking notice, and then they start having to think about ways to stop this guy before he gets too big. And I love that, man. And obviously he's buying up all these various different regional banks, and he's really starting to flex his muscle. He's not on the level of a Citibank, but he's growing and growing and growing.
Well, I think they're trying to convince ourselves, John, at that point. It's all small-time banks he's sort of homing in on. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to tell themselves, not really get much to worry about. Well, you're talking about it, so clearly it's in your head. You know, he's starting to live rent-free inside both their heads. And it's just great to see it unfold. Stephen,
I've said it, I'm going to repeat myself. He's forward-thinking, he's scheming. It's dialed up to another level in this movie. He's manipulating banks' money. He's playing the stock market. It's a mesmeric rise. And there's the character's development. He's changing before our very eyes. He goes from this family man full of integrity to an absolute ruthless stock exchange, money market businessman. I don't
know if it was this episode or the next episode where he's sitting on his sofa with the magazine and his brother.
Next one.
It's the next one. I will talk about it more in depth then, but you do talk about that, and he's forward thinking, he's scheming. He doesn't lose sleep over it, you know, and that scene we'll talk about in episode 4 where...
Business on a Sunday?
Yeah, where his brother's, you know, up to high dough, you know, with worry, and he's just sitting there as if, I'm not even thinking about this is Sunday, you know, but we'll get into that anyway, but it just shows the character of the man, you know.
Yeah, he's developing all the while in this TV show, and it's brilliant. With 4 episodes in, he's changed dramatically from the guy we've seen in the first episode, this sort of wide-eyed... jobber on the floor of the Bombay Stock Exchange. He's now an absolute player in the money market, and he's going toe to toe with Citibank. He's trying to grow more to be rivaling with, I can't recall even now, the bank or the group that he mentioned. It was something Lynch or something.
I can't remember.
A big famous bank over in the States, I think. He's got delusions of grandeur, this guy.
You're going to find, folks, that we're terrible with names.
Terrible with banking, because I only really bank with one bank, and I've banked with them for nearly 20 years, and I don't really care about finances. This is opening my mind up, man. I'm getting interested in stocks, but I'm not a Harshad, so I'll lose all my money. But Stephen, obviously, he does. He circumvents. We spoke about the development. He circumvents a clampdown or an investigation into bank receipts at some point too. This is when we start opening up various different perspectives. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He's a sort of tax man. I'll try and get his name at the moment. I'll look down.
Just the guy who's jogging at the start.
It's S. Venkataramanan. Right, I can't see his name. But it's the guy jogging. He looks like death warmed up. He's a tax man. He's sort of investigating all of these banks. He doesn't touch Citibank because he knows they're untouchable, but he starts going after banks that Harshad's meddling with. He gives him a warning. A warning. And he goes after Harshad's banks he's obviously investing in and working the money with. So he starts circumventing that. I can't recall exactly how he does it, but he's basically brokering deals with the government and all of that to access public sector
gets a phone
utilities.
Call from...
I I think it's a new Prime Minister or something,
which
I think one gets
that
assassinated.
surprised me, John, how quickly this man's rose, to the level he's at. He's
again.
getting phone calls from the Prime Minister.
The development's incredible. He goes from a little cramped, tiny household, stepping on the toes of his brother and his mum and dad, to now living in a mansion, huge big office, and he's getting conversations from the leader of India. It's absolutely extraordinary, the journey.
Himself,
and this is a real story. This isn't fake. This is an actual real story. I love the way that, again, the ingenuity, circumventing this investigation. You're going after bank money. Well, I'll go and utilise the government's money then. You're not going to stop me. I'm going to make money no matter what. And he starts getting into gas and oil and all of these industries. It's brilliant. But Stephen, and obviously he changes into a superstar for the common man, and that's something I've seen even in the trailer. They're calling him a fraud. I think
one of his nieces asked for his autograph as well at one point.
Yeah. So this guy's turned into a superhero, or not a superhero, a superstar. That's a little bit harsh. Not a superhero. That's too far. But I loved it, man. I loved his rise. Stephen, the structure of the episode, though, what did you make about it? I mean, I've said already. I've showed my hand with
John,
this. I loved the editing. I loved the pacing. It just flies by. It's a really well constructed TV show in general. Even the theme tune, it doesn't overstay its welcome.
I love the theme tune.
It's a brilliant little montage.
The little the person falling off the building and the building crumbles and all that. I don't know if that's maybe foreshadowing or something like that, what's going to happen, but and I mean that in a metaphoric sense. I don't think Harshad's going to fall off a building and the car's
his world's going to crumble.
That's what it means, But the structure of the episode, John, I'll probably dance around the technical aspects that you've already mentioned. What I liked about this one was more character development for Harshad, expansion of the characters as well that we already established in the first two episodes. We're getting more as well, the likes of AJ Kedia, the likes of that, and your taxman as well. That's what I want to see. I want to see all these, because he's on the rise. It's all these, you've got to be introduced to the more sort of top dogs of this structure,
money market world.
Money market world. So and every one of them so far, I don't know if it's right me saying I like them. I actually like this Ajay Kedia guy. There's something about him I do like, because I think it's because I like the actor. I think because the way he's playing him, because he started off just kind of palming him off, whatever, and now he's thinking about Harshad all the time now. He's obsessed with him now. So I like this character as well, and that's what I like about the structure of this episode.
And the plot that moves into the fourth episode is truly glorious. It delivers one of the best moments in the whole TV show so far. But we'll get into that after this review is broken down and we're moved on. Stephen, you're right, expanding out characters, and it starts to expand out the Susheta journalist character too. She appears at the start. She's investigating this guy. She's already, it's a start. Stephen, that's another thing. We spoke about them passing by in the stairs. Wasn't anything to do with times and the mixing. She wasn't a ghost.
No.
They actually worked in the same building. Her first job was in the stock exchange, so she was close to him.
I just don't think that was explained well in that episode, John. But once I saw this episode, it made sense. I went, no, it wasn't a clever sort of flashback thing that was going on.
Great as well.
I think we were looking too deep into it, but it made sense, John. You're right.
I'm a deep thinker, Stephen, that's why. But I mean, it establishes her more. She starts popping up more and more. It's blending time. I've said it's blending timelines. It isn't really. But you've got the security, or the sort of investigating the bank subplot. There's a lot going on within this episode, and it's, again, 50 minutes long. Really well paced, edited, put together, yada, yada, yada. Final thoughts on the episode, Stephen. The development of the plot, the world in general. We've kind of done it, so we could probably just end the review just now. The development was nice of the plot. It furthered the world, it furthered the man. It furthered the rise of this guy, getting into a different arena, if you'd like, financial arena, the money market, instead of just being bogged down in this Bombay, the BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange. I like the way it expanded it out. It's almost like a little microcosmic sort of John Wick 2, where it's expanding out the mythology, the world, characters involved. And there's subplots, there's different things going on. I really enjoyed it. I liked this episode. It's probably, I don't know if I'm going to rate individual episodes, but I still reckon the second episode's probably one of my favourite, because the old dad dies in it and he was a great character.
For the time we had him, he was. I think, John, what we'll probably find is that as every episode we watch and we review, it will just get better. I think it's just the way it's been written. I said this last week. If you've got very good writers for a television series, it won't fail. As long as they stay true to their formula, and that's what they seem to be doing. They're not rushing the storyline, because I did think, John, after episode 2, when he was working in the share market. I thought, you know, it's not, how can you stretch this over 10 episodes? But they don't sit on their hands, you know, and
he's buying up Mazda.
And they're developing these characters all the time. I know that obviously there's a lot. This is based on hearsay and reports and newspaper articles and stuff like that, and they built this story up, but it is a story that happened. So
Steve, I need to search this guy up. I have to say, I've still not even searched him up to know if he's out of jail now. Is he still in jail? Is he alive? I don't know what's going on. I hope he's still alive.
But the Sucheta Dalal character, John, just to sort of wrap things up here before I pass it over to you, I'm glad we're getting to see her more now. We got the narrations maybe 2/3 of the way through this episode, and then we're getting to see a bit more of her. I like the actress as well. Is it Shreya Danawathari? I think that's how you say it. Yeah. Something about her I like. You know, she's
got a familiar face, Stephen. She puts me in mind of another actor.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen her in something else, but I searched her IMDb and I haven't.
Yeah, she reminds me of someone. I can't remember who it is, but I think it's just she's got a familiar face, or she looks like someone. But I'm glad to see her in this, because I thought perhaps it was only going to be, we were seeing her through narration. The way that a series started with obviously that little informer turning up at the office, I thought this was going to be, we're only going to get to see her in her office and her taking notes from this guy about the whole fraud thing. But she's in pursuit of Harshad. She's not fooled by the guy. She knows there's something not right about him. She's getting all the sort of wrong vibes coming off him, and she's determined that she's going to, you know, obviously unravel his rise. So
she's a very expedient investigator too. She's not sitting back in an office. She's getting very hands-on, looking into the minutiae of his dealings, of his companies that he's fronting, like Mazda, that's in a tiny little grubby house or building that's got saloon doors getting into a wall. He's an absolute shyster, honestly. But she's great, man. And it's established in the first episode when we meet her that she's an expert in the stock exchange, and now we know why, because she actually worked there as a first job. So again, it's all connecting in. It's all beautifully intricate and connecting in. And you're right, Stephen, final thing I'll add before we round the review up, it is a TV show. I feel it's going to get better and better and better. They're laying down the web of deceit, this character's backstory. Now we're just going to see it all playing out. I'm getting bigger and bigger and bigger, taking more risks before he takes a risk too far and gets brought down, and the whole empire crumbles. And that's the most compelling viewing. When you watch historical things about the Roman Empire, it's great seeing it rising, but when it all starts failing and crumbling,
John,
it's amazing.
This has got the same structure as the House of Cards for me.
It has.
We'll not get into that, obviously, but it just has that sort of meteoric rise of a character, and then we see the downfall. I'm sure we're going to see the downfall.
But no, from a dodgy get. But look, that's going to round up our review of episode 3. What is the name of the actual episode, Stephen? It's a free word.
Yep, I'll just bring that up, John.
Something Kai.
It is Paise Dukaan.
Yeah, that's our review of Paise Dukaan. Too many E's in there, and I've been drinking. It's never a good combination. But what's your thoughts on that episode? Have you watched Scam 1992, the Harshad Mehta story? Maybe you can share below what your thoughts are on this episode. How does it rank compared to other episodes? Are we on the right path? Does it get better, more intricate and complex, and better viewing as it moves on? You can share below what your thoughts are on this episode, on the TV show, on the actors, and anything in between. We never spoke about performances, but it's Harshad, the guy that plays Harshad again.
Yes,
Prantik Gandhi, I think it is. I need to have a little look even now and see if I'm right. I may be well wrong, but what's your thoughts anyway? You can comment below. It is Pratik Gandhi. Yeah, that's a little victory for my memory. And if you can enjoy the video, you can like it. And if you want to see more reviews like this, more content like this in the future, you can also subscribe to the channel. But look, we'll be back very, very shortly indeed for another review of episode 4. But until then,